I don't care how fancy the restaurant is. There's no way I'm dressing up for it.
R/enter.
Hey there, Mr. Redder here. And the cute one, me. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My girlfriend refuses to dress nice for our date night. So we had decided to go out on the weekend, and I suggested going somewhere fancy. She says okay, and I find an upscale Chinese restaurant and show it to her. She says cool, and we agree to spend the evening there. Fast forward to the evening. I see her dressed in a t-shirt and worn-down jeans. I asked her why she's not wearing a dress, and she just replies she doesn't feel like it. I'm like, okay, but I told you it's a fancy place. And she's like, it's just a Chinese restaurant. I pull up the Instagram, and I try to show her their feed to convince her that it's upscale. But she doesn't even want to look at it. I again ask her to dress nicely, and this time she's upset, and she says we're not going anywhere tonight. We haven't talked since then, and it's been a day now. She usually likes to dress up, even when we go to a normal bar. This is leaving me confused. Am I the jerk here? Edit. I just want to make a few things clear. The place had a dress code, smart elegant, so not really dressy and not too casual either. I wasn't asking her to specifically wear a dress, but just to dress a little bit better. We live together, and I know her wardrobe, and a dress is usually what she prefers to wear when she dresses up. I looked at a few posts and stories on their page, and in most of them, the women seemed to be dressed up a bit. I did not want her to feel uncomfortable when we got there, as she's pretty self-conscious. Edit 2. People keep asking me what I wore. I wasn't dressed yet. I usually wait until she's done. But anyway, I was planning to wear a polo shirt and a pair of chinos. To people saying chinos and a polo is not dressed up, this is in Dubai, and the weather is insanely hot, especially during the summer. Wearing a suit is not an option, and when you do, you look out of place. Hard for us to tell, considering we don't know just how fancy the place is. There are places where people tend to dress fancy, but it's no big deal if you don't. And then there are places where if you don't, you stand out like a sore thumb. Depending on that, either side could be right. Not the jerk. Dressing up for a restaurant or an event is just basic adulting. You gave her a heads up in advance regarding how fancy this place was. You mentioned she has dressed up in the past, so she has no trouble doing it. I think the real problem here has yet to be articulated by her. I hope you find out what the real issue is and you can work it out. Update us if possible, and good luck. You're the jerk. You seem to have conflated smart clothing with a dress. Why did it need to be a dress? There are plenty of smart clothes women can wear that are not dresses. She isn't a jerk for looking at pictures of the restaurant and determining that, in her view, she was dressed appropriately. You aren't a jerk for having a different view, but the whole "why aren't you wearing a dress" thing? Yup, I can see why that irritated her. Edit to add. Personally, I'm not wearing a dress to hang out with a dude in chinos and a polo shirt, but that's just me. Karen demands I cut her extremely long hair. I'm a hairstylist. I had a woman book her daughter in for a trim and color with me. I'm not their usual stylist. The stylist they usually go to is on holiday, and I was recommended to them by a friend. When the mom booked the trim and color in, she specified that her daughter had really long hair and asked if that was okay for me to handle. The receptionist said yes, because I have a lot of clients with waist-length hair. Waist length is usually the longest hair I'll cut. I've never had a client with hair longer than this. Due to issues with my knee, I can't kneel down for long. I'm awaiting surgery. When they turned up for the appointment, the daughter had her hair up in a bun, so I couldn't see the full length of her hair. The mom thanked me for being able to get her daughter in. She said that when their usual stylist isn't available, it can be difficult to get her daughter an appointment due to her hair length. When the daughter sat in my chair, I asked her to take her hair down so that I could brush through it before we started her color. When she took her hair down, I noticed it was much longer than I expected. I asked her how long her hair was, and she said it was knee length. She brushed her hair back, so it was all going down the back of the chair, and it was well past the length I was comfortable cutting at. I would have had to kneel down to do it. I waved the mom over as I told the daughter I couldn't do it. I apologized to the mom and told her that I would not be able to cut her daughter's hair due to its length. I explained that it was too long for me to cut it, as I couldn't kneel down to cut it. Understandably, the mom was upset that I was refusing to cut her daughter's hair. She demanded the booking fee back. I informed her that the £50 booking fee was non-refundable, and she would have been told this at the time of booking. She then demanded to speak to the manager of the salon. I told her that I would get her the owner. The owner of the salon did refund her the money. She told me that I shouldn't have taken the booking if I couldn't cut hair that long. I told her that the length had never been specified to me. The receptionist was just told that it was long, and long hair in our area is usually no longer than waist length. She knows I can't kneel without being in pain. The mom has since been writing on the Facebook page of the salon, complaining that I refuse to cut her daughter's hair because I can't actually cut long hair. I feel bad that mom is upset about this, but at the same time, it was never specified how long her daughter's hair actually was. Am I the jerk for refusing to cut extremely long hair? Not the jerk for not cutting the hair, but you are the jerk for no refund. I would be pretty mad about that. You're the jerk for saying the booking fee was non-refundable. The issue certainly wasn't the client's fault, so in no circumstance should they be out $50. Soft, you're the jerk. Seems like there was miscommunication here. Mom thought she had communicated everything she needed to. She didn't have any way of knowing that there's a length which you can't cut because of your knee issues. Where you fall into jerk territory is how you responded to her when she asked for the refund. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my mother-in-law stay with us because she's upper class? I'm 29, female. My husband, who's 30, grew up with a family with similar amounts of money as mine. But I grew up solidly blue-collar and middle class. My dad was a boat repairman with all my uncles, while my husband grew up more in a white-collar world, playing piano, sailing, owning horses, etc. We had a vacation home in a small beach town where we spent our whole summers, while my husband's family spent 2 weeks each summer in the Hamptons. Our families just spent their money differently. We're all still about the same bracket, but act differently. My husband's family occasionally visits us since we own a home with a guest room. They're nice, but very different. For example, their homes are immaculate, nothing ever out of place. They move very deliberately with everything they do. I'm not dirty at all, but I will sometimes leave out books I'm reading for a few days or have more clutter. They don't swear, ever. I will if the situation warrants it, but never like at someone, more when telling a story. They're just a bit more uptight, which makes it hard for me to be totally authentic with them. They also judge me when I'm not the same as them. For example, they show up unannounced to drop in. I'm like, sorry it's a little messy, we didn't know you were coming. They look around and say, yeah, I can see that. Or when they met my parents and my dad dropped a few no-no words at my parents' house and he had a few beers in him. They were shocked and clearly uncomfortable. Some dirt gets on the floor from someone's boots and I don't pick it up right away. Someone is pointing it out to me instead of just waiting 5 minutes until I finish what I'm doing. Even cooking is different. My family is from Spain, so we make, in my opinion, amazing food and we go all out, and we don't worry about cleaning until after. They make very safe meals, like pasta, very carefully, and never let a single thing drip out of the saucepan. Everything is moderated. My mother-in-law recently asked if she could stay with us for a month. I like my mother-in-law and I don't mind her staying with us occasionally, but I always need to do a deep clean, be super careful of any messes while she's here, speak in lower tones, and never swear. It's like I can only show so much of myself and always need to be careful. I can't do that for a month. I told my husband no, and he got upset. He said I'm more open with my family, and I should open up to his family. I told him I can't, because they say they want to be close, but then judge me every time I do something less classy than them or act different. He told me I need to just ignore them and be myself and allow them to come over. I refused, he's angry, and now we're at a stalemate. Am I the jerk? Edit. Our beach house was tiny, with 1 bedroom and a 3-season porch for the kids, and we shared it with all of our cousins and aunt and uncle. We also rented it out during the off-season. We did not grow up learning how to ski, we went to public school and did not travel much. My husband traveled the world, went to Aspen, and hung out with people much richer than him as a kid. His parents did everything they could to maintain that lifestyle, including working multiple jobs, renting vacation homes in desirable locations for a week instead of buying, etc. We came from similar money brackets, but his parents really wanted the upper-class lifestyle, while mine wanted to stay more blue-collar in nature. My parents both came from serious poverty, but did well with his business that he started when I was a kid. I was unaware that there could be these subtle class differences until I met his family. My husband's long-term ex was super wealthy, so that doesn't help. I never claimed not to be privileged. I'm so grateful to have grown up in my situation and have amazing childhood memories. Whether you want to call this a lifestyle or class difference, there's a clear difference between his family's expectations and mine. I see this as a good way for them to decide if they really want a closer relationship. Let them come and be yourself. She doesn't like the mud of the boots tracked in? There's a broom. Wants to clean the kitchen before eating? Will be eating. Has a judgy look on her face? Ask if there's a problem. She'll either start relaxing or she won't. Either way, you get to keep living your best life. And please invite me to dinner when I'm in the area. No jerks here. Not the jerk. By the way, it's not classy to drop by unannounced. Their cultured upper-class ways may be only so much pretense. Go ahead, swear, drop things on the floor. Just be yourself in your own home. Either they'll get comfortable or they can leave. You're the jerk. I can see why your husband is angry. Your family lives near you and are over all the time, but you can't host his mom at all? Like, if a month is too much, just shorten the visit. How would you feel if your husband told you that your family is not welcome in your home at all? If he insinuated they were nuisances to him personally and he can't be bothered to be around them? Wouldn't you be angry? Also, as advice, you might want to start dealing with your insecurities. They seem to be coloring just about all interactions with your in-laws. Most of the things you mentioned have nothing to do with class. Being tidy and not swearing is not a crime. They might have different bearings, but they are your husband's parents and your in-laws. They're not forcing their upbringing on you from what you wrote. Try being yourself a bit more around them, and next time they point something out to you, ask them for help. Keep a book out on the table. Who cares? Don't keep a facade around them 24/7. How can you expect them to like and bond with you if you in fact never show them yourself? Am I the jerk for wanting my roommate to replace my special wine that her friend opened? I, 23 female, share an apartment with 2 roommates, 28 female and 25 female. My 28 female roommate, Morgan, sometimes has friends over and they'll watch movies and drink something, usually wine. I don't really drink, just once or twice a year on special occasions. The most recent time was because my sister wanted to do a wine tasting while we were on a trip together. I found the first wine that I've actually enthusiastically liked, a spicy wine infused with hot peppers. I bought a bottle, took it home, and put it in my section of the shared pantry. A couple of months went by without incident. Then one Friday night, I came home to Morgan and 2 of her friends drinking it. I confronted her about it, and she said that her friend had opened it without knowing it was mine. Morgan apparently realized the mistake, but thought it would be okay because I've said that I don't like wine before. What makes you think that made it okay? I've said that before, yes, but this is literally the only wine I've ever enjoyed enough to buy a bottle of. I was saving it for a special occasion, or maybe to share the next time my sister came to visit, but they drank most of it, and now there's barely a glass left. I told her I wanted her to replace it, and she agreed. Well, a couple of weeks later, she said that she had gotten me another bottle, but it was just regular wine from the store. I told her that she must have misunderstood. I don't want just any old bottle of regular wine. I want her to get me another bottle of the actual wine that she and her friends drank. Her eyes got really wide, and she started complaining about how that winery is a 3-hour drive away, and that wasn't fair because it was her friend who opened it and not her. Honestly, I told her that I didn't really care. Morgan knew it was mine and let her friends drink it anyway. She could have told her friend that it was mine, put it away, and told me about it, and I would have understood. But no, she let them go ahead and even poured herself a glass. She was still drinking it when I came home. So yeah, I've told her that her friend can replace it or she can. Don't really care how, I just want another bottle before the lease is up next year and I move out. Morgan is mad at me. She's been avoiding hanging out in our shared living room and won't speak to me at all now. Our third roommate thinks I'm being unreasonable and wants me to just drop it and accept the regular wine bottle as a replacement, so Morgan will get back to her old self. They're both making me feel really bad now, and I'm wondering if I'm being too harsh, so am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She needs to keep her mitts off of other people's food and drink. Not the jerk. I don't believe her friend took it by mistake. Do you let your friends rummage through your cabinets to find whatever they want? Either way, Roomie needs to replace with the exact same thing. It doesn't matter how she gets it or how inconveniencing it is. This is the consequence of not respecting boundaries. The box of skulls. In my free time, I like to draw. One subject of interest is skulls. Usually I have to search the web for images of them, but I know a biologist, so I called them up and asked if I could borrow a cast, not a real skull. They said that they never loan out a skull because they will forget who they loaned it out to and it just disappears. Online, they go for $300 to $2,000. She had the ones that are not open above the eyes so you can see into the brain cavity that are obviously for study. They looked more real as they were cast from real skulls, and thus have some of the character and damage of the originals. I think they're rather sturdy plastic with a little heft. They are all two pieces with a detached mandible. In addition to human skulls, she had other mammals including apes and monkeys that have fangs. Strangely, she said she would be willing to loan out all of the skulls, and that way they will not forget who has what. I agreed, and grinning, I took a huge box of them home. My wife saw the box and asked me what was in it. I said, skulls. She said, no, really, what's in the box? She didn't believe me. I can imagine bringing a big box of Legos a colleague's family was passing on or something like that, and upon being asked, saying skulls or some other random improbable item just to be funny, because whoever would have expected a box of skulls? I said it again. She got mad and said, fine, don't tell me. Now at this point, I've had my fun. She was indeed surprised by my answer, and I could have filled in the details of how and why I got the skulls and when I had to return them. But I was told not to tell her, so I did that. I complied stubbornly, and with perhaps a bit of malice because of her extreme reaction surprising me, I froze up and became defensive when I'm surprised because of my childhood. She grew up with older brothers, and they were always teasing her growing up. You can be sure her orange juice had gummy worms in it. She has a short fuse for foolery. On the other hand, I was the oldest with a stern and overly firm stepmother, and I learned to do as I was told to the letter, lest I face the consequences, which go beyond the scope of this post. I put on stubbornness just as she wanted an explanation. She asked again, and I said that I had answered the questions, and besides, I had just been told to not say anything else. I think we were both a bit steamed. She didn't get an explanation because I stuck by her command to not say anything. She pondered for a while, and I didn't see when she slipped to another part of the house to get closer to the box. When she was near it, she pounced on it and opened it up. I didn't even see her. Without context or explanation, she got an eyeful of scale-sized skulls. I saw her talking to herself. He said skulls. These are skulls. A box full of skulls. It was kind of a moment of shock. They were not neatly stacked, just jumbled mandibles and craniums. Of course, this was not what I had imagined when I came home with this box. I rather wanted the enthusiasm and wonder that I had. Well, it was botched. But I explained the details after she had found that I had not been sarcastic. We recovered gradually, and it all kind of played out again when the kids came home from school. Here's what happened with them. They were surprised by the box of skulls too. My daughter had scheduled a scary movie night with friends. My son buried a monkey skull, smaller, and veggie sticks, the salty ones that look like French fries. My wife was like, "Oh, no you don't. We don't do that here." During the film, one of the girls pulled out a monkey mandible with fangs. It was dark, but a surprise to everyone. Much screaming. Turns out my wife only removed the cranium. The mandible was still in there, buried in the veggie sticks. No one knew. It turned into a sleepover. Fine. They were up later than me. I had to work, so I got up. No shower, no nothing. Just get out of the house. On the way out, I noticed that they arranged all of the skulls in a row, perfectly pairing each cranium with its mandible. That's a difficult task. As I get a handful of cereal to munch on the way out the door, I'm inspired. I put an ODO in each eye socket. I'm out to work. I heard later that they thought no one had been downstairs before them, and they were certainly last to bed, so they could not explain the cereal in the eye sockets. It was terrifying, much screaming. When Halloween came around, one of them dressed as an ODO. Don't remind you about your passport renewal? Cool. This happened a few years ago when my now husband and I first started dating. We were going on holiday in May in order to attend his friend's destination wedding. I don't mind his friends, but for the purpose of this story, I have to say they are more his friends than mine. He needed his passport renewed, which needs to be done every 10 years here in the UK. Knowing that we had this trip coming up and that his passport needed renewing, I reminded him back in, I think February, that it was a job that he needed to do. I think the third time I reminded him about it, possibly sometime in April, he slightly snapped at me, or was at least a little off, and basically said, "You don't need to keep reminding me. I'll sort it out." Fine. Even though this was still early in the relationship, I had already noticed that my boyfriend, as he then was wonderful in many ways, but he is a bit of a procrastinator, and especially has a tendency to put off boring admin-type jobs such as this. I can't say I blame him, but I'm the sort of person who gets things like that done as soon as I notice them, because otherwise they'll be on my mind. But he was absolutely right. This was a trip to see his friends. My passport didn't need updating. It really wasn't my job to remind him about his or chase him about it. I didn't especially care what happened either way. The trip was extremely cheap, and the travel insurance might have even covered canceling it. Malicious compliance activated. Well, wouldn't you know it, something like 5 days before we were due to leave, he sheepishly comes to me and says he still hasn't done anything about his passport. I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but I think standard lead times for passports here are at least a few weeks. So he ends up doing a priority request, or whatever it's called, where they fast-track your application. I think from memory, the basic application is £79, and then priority on top was another £150, and possibly more for fast shipping. I think the whole thing ended up costing him around £250 with everything in together, when it should have been £79. My memory is blurry, but I think he also had to get a new passport photo taken and authenticated quickly too, which I seem to remember was really stressful and rushed for him as well. We did get to go on the trip as everything came through the day before we left. He apologized for having snapped at me and for asking me not to remind him about it. But by that point, I wasn't even angry, and honestly, I felt bad for how much stress and expenses he had gone through. He's improved how he does his boring life admin since then. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that I don't care about how her wedding turns out? I'm 29, male. My sister, who's 26, has always been incredibly spoiled. It's always her way or the highway, so I knew that when she got engaged, she would be a handful. Her wedding is coming up in about a year, and she's already started planning. She sat us all down, my mother, father, and my other sister, and told us what they had decided for the theme. Now, personally, I think it's a little tacky to put a theme on the wedding, but it's not my wedding, so I held my tongue. Her theme was nature, and this was applied to everything. She wanted a floral lace dress, succulents as favors, and the ceremony to take place in a greenhouse. Again, tacky, but not my wedding, so I didn't say anything. The issue arose when it came time to talk about the reception venue. She said that she wanted it to be outdoors in one of those huge event tents with windows so that we could be in nature. My whole family hated the idea. An outdoor reception just seems very cheap and not at all classy. We suggested that she go with something a little more classic, like an event venue, but she had her mind set. I got really upset because the entire family was telling her that they would prefer one thing, and she was insisting she do another, when she was literally the only person who wanted it. At first, I tried to go easy on her by telling her that the themed weddings are just a fad, and if she commits to her theme so heavily, she'll look back on it in 20 years and cringe, and that it's better to choose something timeless, like a simple dress in a hotel ballroom. I said she could definitely incorporate flowers into the centerpieces and decorations if she wanted, but to have the whole wedding centered around plants and flowers just seemed like too much. Never one to take advice, my sister just said that she's sorry we feel that way, but her and her fiancé have wanted this for their wedding for years, and they've spent a lot of time coming up with the details together. And they wanted their wedding to reflect their personalities and who they are as a couple, and she didn't think my timeless suggestions would be able to do that. Here's where I might be the jerk. I kind of let my frustration get the better of me and said, "Fine, I don't care if your wedding turns out to be tacky. I knew you were going to be an inflexible bridezilla anyway." I do think that she was being too rigid and just thinking about what she would like instead of what her family and guests would prefer. But my parents say that it's my sister's wedding and that it wasn't cool to say that I didn't care. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. 1. There's nothing wrong with her theme. 2. It's not your wedding, so your preferences are irrelevant. 3. One person's tacky is another person's treasure. 4. There is nothing timeless about your basic suggestions. Yeah, you're the jerk. You sound a bit spoiled as well. It's her wedding. She has the right to do what she wants. You and your family can suggest, but getting upset when she goes on her own direction is selfish. Neighbors tell me to stop using my hammer because they have a new baby. My neighbor just rang my doorbell to tell me his wife said to stop hammering. I was dumbfounded. I just kind of stared and said, "Excuse me?" And he informed me that we would be unable to make any sort of noise for the next few months because of their new baby. To which I laughed in his face and closed the door. And now his wife is screaming at my door, and he's messaging me to please just do what his wife says. So some background. My spouse bought this house in 2011. Both houses are single-family detached homes. Both lots are 1.5 size lots, so there's roughly 33 feet between our houses compared to the 6 feet for the rest of the street. Neighbor husband was already in his house. I moved in 8 years ago. Shortly after, saw the neighbor for the first time, and it was someone I've known since I was 4 years old. We went to school all the way through high school together. We're now 40 years old. 3 years ago, he met a woman. She had at the time a 2-year-old daughter. She would stay at his house, and I would constantly find the kid wandering the streets. They would just send her outside with no supervision, no toys, no fenced yard, and expect her to entertain herself. The kid was, and still is, nothing but a brat. 2 years ago, she moved in with him and brought her daughter with her. I run a daycare, so my yard is full of fun toys, but we also have 3 other fenced-off areas, one for our pool in the summer, one for our dogs, and one for our hot tub. All these have separate fences and self-closing gates, plus my external fence is 6 feet tall. During 2020, when lockdown hit, the kids were doing virtual schooling from home. She never actually did it. She would be ringing my doorbell in the middle of the day asking me to open my yard for her to play. I would explain that she can't be here when I have daycare kids and my daughter will come out to play after supper. She went to their backyard, dragged patio furniture to my fence, and climbed over it. Who knows how long she was actually out there, but she decided she was done and then couldn't get out. The latch for my main gate is at the very top so that the kids can't open it when my back is turned. She started screaming, so I ran out in a panic. I took her home, explained what had happened to her mom, and her mom gave me crap for just not allowing her to play. I face $100,000 fine if she's caught on my property during daycare hours. I explained this, she still snapped and called me a jerk. I left it at that. It happened a handful of more times. I started sending them daycare invoices. Still kept happening. I finally told them I would have to call the police next time, which I did. Except this time, Mom and Grandpa were both sitting outside on the stairs and watched her do it. Also, never bothered to come help her open the gate when she started screaming. Police told them to stop or Mom would face charges. I now have proximity sensors at the top of my fence, and I get a notification if anything goes over my fence. It's gotten better as she has gotten older. So last summer, we set up our above-ground pool. Just ordered a new pump system and heater. Pool was half filled. I had also just done up all my planters. I casually glance at my security cameras and see her by the pool. I head out. Main gate was open as the neighborhood kids were running from yard to yard playing. She took it upon herself to go to the pool and take buckets of soil from my planters and dump it into the pool. $400 of damage to my brand new $1,000 pump and heater system that was up for less than 4 hours. I snapped and screamed at her to get out of my yard and to not come back. She's not allowed in my yard at all unless me or my spouse is out there. Now to current time. They had a new baby last week, and me hammering in my basement is disturbing them in their house 33 feet away. And they expect me to wait until the fall to finish my project. So I'm currently sitting on my bench outside, enjoying a glass of water with my outdoor speakers playing metal while I mow the lawn, which is much louder than the little bit of hammering I was doing. I'll finish that tonight after dark. Edit. Lots of people are saying to call the police. I do call the police when I feel it's necessary. We live in a major crime area and they're always busy with that. If I call, because it's non-violent and they recognize the address, it's at least 24 hours or usually not at all. As for the concerns about her wandering the neighborhood, I'm in a smaller city. My kid has been playing by herself in the neighborhood with regular check-ins since she was 4. I have no issues with that. At 2 and 3, when she was originally doing it, was ridiculous. As for saying not to let my daughter play with her, I cannot take my daughter's entire friend group, which is exactly what would happen. We are one of 3 houses in a row with kids. House 1 has 3 kids, House 2, the problem house, has 2 kids, and House 3, mine, has 1. House 1 and 2 all go to the same school. They're already outside playing by the time my daughter gets home. My daughter does activities on Saturday and Sunday mornings, so the same thing. So not allowing my daughter to play with one kid also takes away 4 others. Am I the jerk for leaving a dinner date after he fed his dogs a better meal than us? Title screams of entitlement, but let me explain. I started casually dating a guy 2.5 months ago. We have gone on several dates, such as movies or dinner at restaurants and the arcade at the pier near the ocean. It's been a really pleasant time, and I don't want you guys to think I don't appreciate this guy, because I do, but this really rubbed me the wrong way. As for who has been paying for the dates, we usually split 50-50. He has paid for me once, and I've paid for him twice, but the rest is split. So he knows that I have a gastro reflux disease, severe acid reflux that I'm on medication for. I can't eat anything that has red sauces, barbecue sauce, or artificial dyes such as red or blues. Yes, the medications help, but only if I'm sticking to a pretty clean diet. I can't even eat hamburger because of the red dye they use. When I eat the things mentioned above, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. As I said, he knows all of this. We've talked about it several times. So he invites me over to his place and says he wants to make dinner. He makes a point to tell me to make sure you have a strong appetite, so I didn't eat anything at all since breakfast, and I was starving after working all day. So I arrive at 6 p.m. and I see him making steak, eggs, potatoes, and corn on the cob, the small ones that you put in pasta salad. It looked and smelled delicious. He puts on a movie while we wait, so I'm in the living room the entire time he's cooking. Well, he keeps going back and forth between the kitchen and living room, and on his last trip back, he brings out our plates, and much to my surprise, it's pizza. I just kind of look at him and ask where the steak and eggs were, and he pretty bluntly said that that was for his dogs, 2 German Shepherds, and stated that they eat better than he does. I reminded him that I couldn't eat pizza, red sauce, and he starts arguing that he made sure to not put too much sauce on it and kept telling me to just try it. I asked if he had anything else, and he said no. I told him sorry, but I needed to go, and I excused myself. On the way home, I grabbed myself something to eat. Well, he calls me, and it sounds like he's having a meltdown. Says he can't believe I made him feel like that, and that the pizza was homemade, and he made sure not to put too much sauce on it. But he knows I can't have it at all, and said something about adding sugar to it, etc. Said I've showed my true colors. My friends also think I'm overreacting here, and said I'm acting jealous of his dogs. Am I the jerk? No, not the jerk. This is what casual dating is for. He seems to have confused dislike of strong sauce, hence the sugar, for an actual medical condition. But it is odd that he can't seem to understand the simple medical explanation. Not sure this has anything to do with the dogs. It worsens the offense because he had all this food she could have eaten and that he's perfectly capable of preparing, but he gave it to someone who can eat other stuff and gave her something cheap and bland in comparison that she can't even eat. The pizza wasn't served due to lack of skills, budget, or time, but as part of a deliberate performance where he invited her to watch him make superior food for someone else. Not sure what satisfaction he gets out of that, but not relationship material. Not the jerk. None of this would make serving someone food they can't eat acceptable. It just eliminates every possible lame defense. This guy deliberately put on a performance about the food he was preparing. He got her worked up and expecting something really special, even prepared it in front of her, and then pulled a bait and switch for something he knew she couldn't eat, and tried to guilt her into going against her medical diet by pulling the jealousy card. Nope, he's testing her boundaries to see if he can be controlling.
Welcome aboard to our newest subscribers, Terrence, William, and Sarah. Subscribe to our channel and tick the bell for all notifications, and you could get a shout out in an upcoming video.